Last session, we went up to verse 14 of chapter 3, where Ved Vyasa through Krishna had talked about yagna. Yagna was work done in the spirit of sacrifice and the power of gratitude, which puts a wheel of action in motion. Now, from the further verses, he's going to talk further and further about it. Something that was very, very significant, that though not said, but the derivative meaning is sins of the past are cause for present pains, and present sins are cause for future sorrows. Reap what you sow. All of us have heard about this. All of us have, it's a very old saying. We've all heard about it. A lot of what Ved Vyasa is talking about is yagna, the spirit of yagna, the attitude of gratitude, is to understand also that when he was talking about gratitude, if you remember last time we spoke a lot about gratitude, the sheer gratitude for everything that is being done for us in the spirit of yagna. When God created the universe, he created the universe itself in the spirit of yagna and the spirit of sacrifice. As mentioned in the last session, I did talk a lot about the sun gives us sunlight, it gives us life without asking for anything back. The wind gives us air, it gives us that very air that we breathe in. Polluted or not pollution, we've created. When it was created, it was that healthy oxygen for us to breathe, life sustaining, totally in the spirit of yagna. So literally, when the world itself was created, it was created in the spirit of yagna, in the spirit of sacrifice, in the, it was about what I can do, not what I get back from what I do. That was the beauty of the universe, and somewhere down the line we forgot about it. If you understand this, you understand that without that gratitude, without that ability to feel gratitude, all we are doing is we are taking and taking and taking and taking. And when we just take without a give back, it never ends well. This is why they say you reap what you sow. In today's day and age, I come across more people who are suffering from a why me, poor me attitude. There's so much of self pity, there's so much of crying about what went wrong. Please don't look at what went wrong. Please look at what action you did to make what went wrong. Today we are crying about the state of the earth. We are crying about the fact that we are sitting on the brink of destruction. There's going to be no water, there's going to be no fossil fuel. I mean, everything that we've taken for granted is going, it's depleting. It is spoiling. Look at the air around us. Just look at the pollution levels we've created. Instead of crying about what has happened to the world today, let's go back and look at what was our individual. And let's not talk of, oh, it was the big corporates, or it was this country, or it was that country. All of us, each and every one of us who resides on this earth, played a part to bring it to where it is today. So let's evaluate our own actions and correct them so that the future corrects itself. It is actions that we do today which are going to give us a future tomorrow. If we don't correct our actions today, we are going to have a horrible, hopeless future tomorrow. This is coming back to this. That's on a broader plane, on the universe. Let's bring this to us individually as people. When we have this why me, poor me attitude, what we are working from is so much of selfishness, because all we are looking at is our pain, what affected us. Not once have we bothered to look at what action we did which resulted in the situation we are in today. At the end of the day, it is all about us. It is what we did, what we thought, what our intent was. Our lack of gratitude, our lack of recognition of everything that was given to us. When we put all this together, you come to a situation where you're sowing all the wrong kinds of seeds. automatically what is happening to your future? Your future is barren, desolate, or horrible. So instead of going into this why me, poor me, how about sitting down and introspecting internally and externally? Internally, what were your thoughts? What were your actions that resulted in a situation today? If today somebody is rude to me, instead of crying about, oh my god, this person's so rude to me, or like somebody slapped me or somebody's cheated me, instead of going and crying about it, how about me sitting down and introspecting and going into the past? When was it in the past that I did something to hurt somebody? It may not be the exact same person, but it is a cycle. What I did is going to come back as a payback. Whether it comes back immediately, whether it comes back in exactly the same form, not necessary, but come back, it will. If I give pain to somebody, pain is going to come back to me in some form or the other, no matter what. Externally, if you look at the broader perspective of it, what are we doing right now, today, to contribute to a better future for the world that we live in? And here I'm talking of the world at large. I'm not talking of just my house, just my building, my complex, not my city, not my country. I'm looking at the larger perspective. What are we doing to make this world a better place? All of us, each and every one of us, has a duty towards it, has a responsibility towards it. So, both, you're talking of internal, which is what applies to you directly, external, what applies for the larger good. Ved Vyasa has said this repeatedly through the Gita, that all the sorrows in social communities can be removed if every member of that community works for the greater good. In fact, if you remember the premise of the Gita, where Arjun went into dejection, did not know what to do, what was explained to him as Karam Yoga by Krishna was your duty for the greater good. And the Vedas do say an individual for a family for a community for a town for a nation for the world. This is the progressive, a greater good that you look at. It's never about, it starts from the one person, but if every one of those one people, which is you, me, all of us, start working for the greater good, we will create paradise on earth. And this is also what Krishna had been explaining to Arjun, that to fight this war you're fighting is for the greater good. It is not about you. Identify with the cause. Forget about you yourself. Forget about egocentric notions of my family, my brother, my this. This war is for the greater good, which is about dharma against adharma. And that is exactly what Vyasa is saying in chapter 3 also, that the entire social network works on interdependence. We are all interdependent on each other. Nature is dependent on us. We are dependent on nature. Respect nature. Nature will give us back bounty. Complete interdependence. If we understand this, believe you me, there is so much of good to be gotten out of it. To take an example of a company that shares its profits with all the workers, it means that the workers will work much harder because they also stand to gain from when the company gains. So they will work to make the company a success, as opposed to that company where the owners just keep the profits to themselves. The workers are not interested. They're going to take a salary, they're going to go home, and they couldn't care less whether the company is a success or not. If it packs up, it fails, they will leave, go find another job somewhere else, and it'll carry on. This is interdependence. That if you benefit, I benefit. It is only when everybody benefits that I benefit. And the day we all start understanding that, we will understand a very intrinsic part of the Vedic way of life. Further down from stanzas 15, 16, 17, and 18, Krishna goes on to further explain the process of interdependence, the complete philosophy of interdependence. He calls it the cosmic wheel of cooperative action. You know, every time people talk about cooperative action, I always remember Anand, the dairy project that started in Gujarat. It started as a cooperative farming method, where it was interdependence between the dairy farmers and the milk supply, and make the process of doing cheese, etc., etc. Look at what a success that model was and still is. Cooperative. If a company can do it, why can't all of us do it? It is just a small matter of understanding that everybody benefits in the greater good. If we if we stop thinking about the I, me, myself, and we actually look at it that if I work and you benefit, I benefit too. Interdependence, cooperative, this is what Krishna is trying so hard to explain through these verses of chapter 3. He talks of it as the wheel of action. He says that the wheel of action is connected with the supreme power itself. In fact, the principle of right action has come from the supreme power. The guy, call him God, call him universe, call him energy, call him what you want to call him. The source that created the universe created it in the spirit of yagna, in the spirit of right action, started it with the process of the wheel of action with interdependence. He who lives in unison with the wheel of action is contributing to the harmony of life. Cooperative work benefits all. I gain if you gain. It is exactly the same principle that a doctor has. A doctor only benefits when his patient does better, because it is when the patient recovers, the patient does well, that patient does word of mouth, the doctor benefits out of it. In fact, this was a beautiful analogy that was given in the movie Koopsurat, Sonam Kapoor and Fahd Khan, I think, where when he's there in a car and he turns around and says that, you know, it's different for you doctors. You guys work selflessly. And the script writer had a beautiful statement saying, who says doctors work selflessly? We benefit when our patient gets better. So that is one place or one profession which has completely understood interdependence. It's the same with spiritual teachers, it is the same with film stars. It's all interdependent. A star will not be a star unless there are fans. If the star does not recognize the value of fans in his life, he will not be that superstar. He will just be a nobody. Fans make the stars need the fans need the stars to, someone to idolate, somebody to look up to. It is again interdependence, one feeding of the other. If every member of the universe follows the spirit of yagna and contributes to a smooth running of the universal wheel of action, we would be blessed. When we were created, it was with the spirit of yagna in place. But having said that, the only person God, the only species that God gave the right of free will, the right to choose what action to take or not to take, was man, human beings, humankind. Animals follow the wheel of action in any case. All of nature follows the spirit of yagna, follows the wheel of action. Man is the only person who has the choice to follow or not to follow, to contribute to a working harmonious system or to strike a discordant note. And as you can see with the world around us, the majority of humankind chose not to follow it. Otherwise, we would not be in such a state of disruption. There is so much of disharmony, there's so much of intolerance, there is so much of I, me, myself. Everybody I talk to, it's only about what's in it for me. A lot of people are about, oh, I'm so sensitive, I got hurt. Don't care a damn about how much of hurt you've inflicted on somebody else. There is zero gratitude or appreciation for what has been done for you. There is zero gratitude or appreciation for the sun that rises every day, for the air that you breathe. Very basic stuff that we take for granted. And this is what he had said in the first few verses of chapter 3 also, that earlier there was that spirit of gratitude to be shown to nature in the form of yagnas, which were prayers, havans, where you gave ahutis, or you gave those offerings to the various gods and goddesses, the varied demigods, as a gesture of appreciation for what they were doing for us. And that is what really preserved nature, because you will not destroy that what you pray to. If you pray to Annapurna, the goddess of grain, the goddess of food, you will not waste that food. You will not belittle that food. You will not throw it away. You will have so much of respect for it. There is a small restaurant in Chennai which is dedicated to Annapurna. All the food is cooked by the devotees. All the servers are devotees. You will find CEOs of some of the top countries coming there, or top companies coming there and serving you. You know, you pay, it's not a limited meal. You can have as many servings as you want. All they request you to do, don't waste one single morsel on your plate. Take it 10 times, but only take as much as you can finish. Devotees of the goddess Annapurna respect for not wasting food. This is exactly what used to happen in the so-called olden days, or what was deemed as pagan by all the Western world, where you prayed. And it wasn't just the Indian culture. You take the Celtics, you take the Norse, you take the Greek, you take Roman mythology, you go into the Druids, you go into the Incas, you go into the Red Indians or the Native Americans. All of them prayed to nature. And because they prayed to nature, they respected nature, they preserved nature. And this is exactly what the Gita is telling us, that when you respect, when you have that gratitude, you will not destroy that thing. This is the spirit of yagna, the spirit of working in harmony, the wheel of action. Further, he goes on to say that a perfect man does not depend, and we have done this before, a perfect man does not depend on external objects for his happiness. He finds bliss, contentment inside himself, in this divine experience which he finds inside, in his soul, in his Atma. When he has achieved that level of satisfaction and contentment, there are no more desires. So when there are no more desires, when he works without being goal oriented, without being result oriented, without being selfish, just for the sheer need of doing his duty to the best of his ability. And automatically, when he starts doing that, he starts performing in the spirit of yagna. A normal man, all of us, we are required to act for, we work for profit, for loss, for earning money. But a person who's a realized soul, who understands the real and the unreal, who understands the duality and has moved away from it to singularity, this man finds satisfaction within himself. He is not looking for that satisfaction on the outside. And this this man who's called the Brahmin, is not dependent on anything on the outside for his basic peace, his basic joy, his basic happiness. This is the man, what again beautifully Ved Vyas has tied this up, that spirit of yagna can be found by a person who works, which we've done before, that a person who works without attachment finds the spirit of yagna will work automatically, cohesively in the interdependence theory, in the wheel of action. From stanza 19, Ved Vyas talks about, he explains further the wheel of action. Krishna goes on to tell Arjun that people who perform actions, he says, what Krishna is explaining to Arjun is that look at me. I have no desire, no need, nothing. I have no expectations. I'm not goal oriented. I have zero attachments. Yet I am doing my work the way I am supposed to do, the way duty demands me to do it. And he explains, firstly, there is work that is at the bottom of the ladder. There is work that is done with selfish motives. This is the bottom of the ladder. The next step is work that is done with the spirit of yagna or sacrifice. And the third and the highest step, which is what we have to attain or get towards, is work that is done with absolutely no attachment. That is zero desire, zero attachments. Even when we work with the spirit of yagna, we are working in an interdependence, we are working at you gain, I gain kind of thing. It is not from totally detached point of view. So the highest on the ladder is working with zero attachments. In fact, Shankaracharya went on to say also that Karam Yoga helps us attain purity of mind, which leads to our salvation. It takes us to perfection indirectly through attaining a purity of mind, and Karam Yoga does that. And we have revisited this again and again in chapter 2 also when we were discussing Karam Yoga, that Karam Yoga is a way towards yoga of knowledge or Gyan Yoga. Further, he goes on to say that Krishna says, he gives examples of kings like King Janak and other kings who attained perfection or liberation through the path of action by performing right actions in a spirit of detachment and self dedication. These were great leaders, and they did this. These leaders set an example. So they led by example. There are two ways to lead, one is to preach and one is to do. These guys led by example, by actually performing all their duties, all their actions in the spirit of detachment and dedication. And that is how during Janak's period, it was known as Satyug. It was supposed to be the ultimate yug where everything was perfect. There was harmony, there was peace. All of that came because the top leader set an example so everybody bottom up started following. Haven't we said this often enough? If the guy at the top is honest, that honesty will permeate down to the bottommost layer. May not be 100%, but will permeate. But if the top of the chain is dishonest, then corruption is going to be rampant. And we've seen it in India. We've seen the levels of corruption. And we've seen it may start from that clerk, but it goes all the way up to the top. If the top is honest, automatically levels of corruption start coming down. Similarly, on as it is on the negative, it is also on the positive front. If the topmost, the leader, is exemplary in his method, in his behavior, in his actions, in his thoughts, in his words, automatically that will permeate down to the lowest levels. What Krishna is trying to explain to Arjun is that Arjun was born into royalty. He is a prince. it is his duty to make sure that his actions are correct so that they permeate down, because people below are looking up to him. In that war, in on that battlefield, with all those soldiers that were standing there, they're all looking to Arjun as an example, because Arjun was considered one of the top warriors of that era. Now, if Arjun walks away from the field without doing his Kshatriya Dharma, without doing Karam Yoga, he runs away. What is going to happen to the morale of the entire army standing there? They are going to take their cues from Arjun and they are going to desert too. So, this is exactly what Krishna was explaining by using the example of Janak and other kings, saying that those guys led by example. Similarly, Arjun needs to lead by example. And this is also true to us in our personal lives as today. Okay, we are not royalty. I wish we were. We are not royalty. We don't have legions following us. We don't have, but we have a household. That's ours. It is up to us to lead by example in that household. If we set the right spirit, if we teach every member, we can't teach through lectures because nobody really learns from somebody else's words, but we can teach by example. Teach everybody in our vicinity that as it is more important to give than to take, just give with your heart, with generosity, without creating a debt in what you are doing. The way the sun gives to us, the way the earth gives to us. When the earth gives us the fruits or the harvest or the vegetables or the grain, it is not sitting on our head saying, "Oh, I gave you this, you owe me." That is not how the universe works. If we can follow the same and slowly expand it to our immediate circle, in my case, my kids, my husband, the help in the house, automatically there are 6 members who are learning by example, and those 6 are going to translate it to a further circle, and this is how it spreads. Teach by example, and that is what Krishna has been saying, or Ved Vyasa has been saying again and again. He says again, even in stanza 21, he repeats, common man is very influenced by living examples of great men rather than teachings from the Vedas or teachings from the Vedantic view of life or anything. They learn by example. Today, Gandhiji is called the father of the nation. He has taught by example. Now, just think about it. He left us with unions, with strikes, with a higher level of casteism, a higher recognition of scheduled caste, SC, ST. He led by example, didn't he? At the time that he was doing it, maybe it was correct. But even today, because he is the father of the nation, we are still following in his example, right or wrong, irrespective. We are still following in his example. This is what he says, that man by nature is an imitating animal. And that is not very hard to believe, because if you look at Darwin's theory of evolution, we evolved from the monkeys or the apes or whatever. Seen a monkey in a zoo, it imitates every action of you. That genetic code, that DNA is imprinted into every human being. We tend to mimic, we tend to imitate actions, gestures, even at times thought processes of people that we believe to be leaders, which is why it is so important to lead by example. Coming back to Arjun, he's reiterating why it is so important for Arjun to lead by example. Even in today's day and life, man is like a monkey. He does ape, he does imitate. So let's give these people something good to imitate, something good to ape. And good leaders are those who give the right who give their followers the right mode of action, because a leader has the power to sway people. If he can sway them the wrong way or he can sway them the right way. All a leader has to do is give the right ideas, the right concepts, and people will automatically start following. Krishna is again and again harping on Arjun that you have to set the right mode of conduct, which is what everybody is going to follow. Think about it. There's on Kurukshetra, there are these huge armies that are sitting there, thousands and thousands of people. And it doesn't matter whether it is the Kaurva army or the Pandava army. Each and every one of the soldiers looked up to Arjun as a role model, as that perfect warrior, as that great warrior. It was so important for Arjun to behave the right way, to set the right example, not just for the Pandava army, for the Kaurva army too, because ultimately it would have permeated down everywhere. Further on, from verses 22 to 24, Krishna goes on to explain and expound even more. Again, repetition, which we have seen happening in the Gita again and again and again. He is explaining the need to lead by example. Krishna repeats, saying that I'm a yogi. It's not even likening himself to Godhead or calling himself a God. He says, I am at a point where complete detachment, zero attachments, zero desires, zero gains, zero needs, zero result orientation, nothing. He was the absolute Brahmin who was complete understanding of the real and the unreal, totally at one with himself, absolutely accepting the singularity and following the path of singularity. And he tells Arjun that in spite of me being who I am still leading by example. I have nothing to gain, yet I am constantly engaged in activity. Krishna didn't have to be in Kurukshetra. Krishna did not have the need to be a part of the war. He did not have to be there right through the duel between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. He had nothing to gain or lose out of it. Yet he was so much a part of it because it was the right thing to do. As a leader, as an icon, as somebody that people respected and looked up to, he was doing what he was preaching right now. He was leading by action, correct action, hoping that others would follow. Some followed, some did not. If everybody had followed, obviously we would not have had the Mahabharat. But as you can see, even when you lead by action, it is not necessary that everybody is going to follow you, but you have to do what you do to the best of your ability. Krishna says, if the Lord, if the God Himself is there, people imitate Him. And if the God goes into inaction, if Krishna had gone into inaction, people would have imitated him. Everybody would have gone into inertia. When you go into inertia, the world is going to get destroyed. This entire world, this universe, us. Let's go down to the smallest molecule. There we are all in a constant state of motion. All of you who've done sciences in your school know that the molecule is constantly vibrating. From the molecule, let's go to the universe. The universe is in a constant state of vibration. In fact, it vibrates to Om. That is why Om is such a powerful chant. When there is constant motion everywhere, the only way to deal with it is to have that motion, is to have that action, is to have that activity. If God comes to a standstill, people follow by example, everybody comes to a standstill. This earth will come to a standstill. If the earth comes to a standstill, there will be no further gravity. What happens? Spinning stops, everybody flies off the planet. There is no more planet. There is no more universe the way we know it. So action is important. It is needed. The universe has been created on the basis of action. But what kind of action? That is something that we need to think about. That is what we need to work towards. And that is what this part of the Gita, chapter 3, is trying to tell us, that how important it is, the right kind of action. That even the God, even the creator has to do the right kind of action. When Brahma created the world, could he have created it without action? He had to have action to create the world. Constant, like I said, constant movement. The planets are moving. There are seasons. There are rise and fall of ocean tides. There is river water that is constantly flowing. Action is imperative to our life. Inaction is against the law of nature. But what he is trying to explain, and this he was answering, if you remember, Krishna had asked this question right at the beginning of chapter 3, where he had said that you are giving me yoga of knowledge, you're giving me yoga of action. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to follow knowledge? Am I supposed to follow action? And that was confusion in Arjun's mind, and all the rest of the verses had been towards removing that confusion. This is once again addressing that part of the question, why action is so important, but action with the right knowledge. Inaction, if you're looking at inaction, it is not stopping work, it is not doing anything, but it is withdrawing our sense organs from sending stimuli to our brain to create a reaction, which is the wrong kind of action. That is what he is saying. He is explaining that when our mind is preoccupied with a thought, but we are pretending to do an action, that is the wrong, or rather, let's put it this way: when our mind is so heavily preoccupied with something or stressing about something, but we are pretending to sit in dhyan, we are pretending to be calm, we are pretending to not move. Wrong kind of inaction. That is absolutely not what is needed. What is needed, and he says that what is needed is for us to control our senses, control our sense organs, so that the stimuli that comes to the brain, one, is correct, two, enough control over the brain so that we do not have a reaction to any kind of stimuli that is sent to us. Krishna has further explains that the creator, when he created this universe, he created it, again a repeat, where he says he created the universe in the capacity of a yagna, in the way of yagna, that everybody, every part of this universe works with a selfless attitude, dedicated to the greater good, a spirit of cooperation between the high and the low, the rich and the poor, the wise and the dull, the spirit of give and take, and all of this to create harmony in nature, where he is explaining that it is, again, if you look at it, look at the duality: the poor and the rich, duality; the high and the low, duality; give and take, duality. All this duality to coexist in harmony, and that is how the universe was created in the first place, and that is the spirit of yagna. If you know how to take, you must learn to give. I also do have this very strong belief structure that God created the haves, people who have a lot or a little or whatever, and God created the have nots. And it is the responsibility of the haves to give to the have nots in that spirit of yagna, not as a debt, but because you have, and in a spirit of gratitude. Just sheer gratitude that I eat 3 meals a day. I have enough on my table. It is so important for me to give out to somebody who cannot even afford 1 meal a day. Gratitude. I'm not the giver. I am blessed to have abundance. And it is my responsibility, having that abundance, to share it with others. And that is something that is a core belief structure of mine. I do hope it becomes a core belief structure with all of you too. I find, digressing a little, but I find having this gratitude is so important. There have been so many instances in my life when I've been through hell and back, and not once have I suffered from a why me, poor me attitude. Not once have I stopped to question my maker. Why are you doing this to me? All I have had, and that is, I think, what why I survived or why I kept my sanity. All I had was gratitude. I do not remember a moment in my life when I am not grateful for whatever is happening around me. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm sitting in this beautiful room. I have an AC on, I have the fan on, I'm able to have electricity, I'm able to afford it, I'm able to conduct a session. You know, the first thing I do literally when I finish the session is send up a thank you. Thank you for helping me conduct a good session. It is living in this gratitude that has kept my sanity. Life is tough. It's tough for all of us. I don't think there's a human being on this earth who can say that they had an easy life. That's not life. Life is tough. It has one hell of a lot of curveballs. It has a lot of bouncers it throws out at you. And the one way to survive it, I find it's worked for me. Guys, try it out for yourself. But the one way to survive it is I never ever forget how much I need to be thankful for, how much I need to be grateful for. By doing that, we are actually going back to exactly what the Vedas are teaching us, what the Vedantic way of life is teaching us. A spirit of yagna, a spirit of gratitude. When you have gratitude, it is very easy to develop the spirit of yagna, the ability to do without a vested interest, the ability to work without attachments or be goal oriented. And I was thinking a lot about this between our last session and this session, that how in the last session I had talked about how I have been able to detach from so many things in my life, especially the material. And I realized that the one thing that really helped me detach from a lot of stuff was this ability to be grateful. Just the sheer gratitude of thank you for everything that I've got. When you have that gratitude, a lot of the ego, a lot of the I, me, myself starts disappearing. When the ego starts disappearing, automatically attachments start disappearing, because then it doesn't matter. Nothing is important anymore. So you're just doing whatever you're doing to the best of your ability. Guys, try this as an exercise. When you go to sleep at night, go to sleep with a thank you for the beautiful day, irrespective of how the day has gone. A thank you for a beautiful day that has passed. When you wake up in the morning, wake up, the first thing you do is smile. It's always lovely to smile. Smile and say a thank you for a beautiful day ahead of you. Just sheer gratitude, nothing else. Try this for a week, and when we have the session next Sunday, I will ask you if your week went better or not. I am guaranteeing you just these two little things, last thing at night, first thing in the morning, and your week will go better. Try it out. Anyway, coming back to this, the Vedantic philosophy is summed up by Ved Vyasa saying, live as the Gita teaches you to live. Perform an action, but perform it in the spirit of yagna. The aim is to get into lok sangrah. I will just get into lok sangrah in a minute, which is the benefit for the larger good. Second, interdependence of everybody in this universe should not be forgotten. A person who works for himself works in vain or works in sin. Leadership qualities are so stressed. Set an example by doing the right things. This is what he is trying to explain in these verses. What he talks about Lok Sangrah is the concept is the same, the greater good, the larger good. Lok, people, for the benefit of the larger good is what the Gita says is so important for us to do. In verse 25, Krishna goes on to further say that attachment for the greater good is not a bad thing. Now, he is saying we've talked about not having attachment altogether, but he is qualifying it a little further. He says that attachment becomes an obstruction only when it is egocentric. When I get attached to something because of the I, me, myself attitude, that attachment is never good. But attachment for the greater good, my attachment to make this world a better place, my attachment to create a more harmonious living, to create a better universe, to create a better world, to create, let's start with, to create a happier house, a happier complex, a happier city, a happier nation, a happier world. That attachment is never bad because it is an attachment to the greater good. Because if you understand, this attachment is also happening in the spirit of yagna, in the spirit of interdependence, in the spirit of the wheel of action. It is not happening on a I, me, myself. Oh, I am attached to my diamond, I'm attached to my car, I'm attached to my clothes, I'm attached to my house, I'm attached to all kinds of crap. That attachment is what the Gita or the Vedantic way of life said is not healthy. But the attachment for the greater good is healthy. It is not wrong. And he has explained the difference between the two attachments. So if we could take the attachment from a very narrow I, me, myself perspective and grow that attachment for the larger good, for the greater good. Still attachment, but that works within the laws of nature. It works within the way the universe was created. It works with the spirit of yagna. He goes on in verse 26. Now, this is one of the first precautionary verses that happens in the Gita, where he explains that please do not get over enthusiastic in giving guidance to others. Very, very important and very intelligent what he did say. He said that if there is a particular method that everybody is following and has been following for centuries and centuries, you can't walk in and give an absolutely different method of working and expect people to follow. If you do that, you're going to create chaos, which is not what is needed. What you have to do is step by step, baby steps, as I keep saying. Slowly but steadily, leaders have to create that right atmosphere, have to create the right learnings, and make change happen step by step. What he is explaining, Ved Vyasa is explaining, is yes, we have given so much of Gyan in the Gita, but we don't expect somebody to do a 180-degree turnaround from all their thought processes, from everything, to start following this way of life. Whatever changes that need to be done, it is imperative that the leaders or the ones who are instilling the changes or starting the changes should do it a little by little, step by step, taking what is existing and molding it a bit by bit. Because if you do a complete turnaround, either people are going to give up and go away because it is just way too much, or there is going to be absolute chaos, or you will completely unsettle one complete generation. So this was one of the first precautionary verses that happened in the Gita, where he is talking about how much is enough, that you don't need to make a change absolutely, completely with a hammer and say, I am going to break all traditions, everything, and I'm going to instill the change now. That is not how change works. It happens step by step, little by little. And at this, on verse 26, we are going to stop this session and continue next Sunday.